Good evening. My name is Mary Claire Hanna. I'm the president of the Navajo County Bar Association. The Navajo County Bar Association is pleased to present this candidate forum to help voters choose who they'll vote for in the upcoming primary election. The primary election is on August 28, 2012. Welcome to those in the audience, to our candidates, and to those viewing this by television. Tonight we are hearing from the 6 candidates for the 3 Superior Court judge positions. Superior Court judges handle all of the serious criminal and civil cases. There is no higher trial level court. There is no dollar limit on how high a case may be. So these judges not only handle issues affecting liberty and family matters, they also make decisions on cases that are worth millions of dollars potentially. In Navajo County, the Superior Court is broken into 4 divisions, and they are equal in authority. The Division 1 seat is not up for election this year. The judges for Division 2 and Division 3 each handle 1/3 of all the adult criminal cases, 1/4 of the domestic relations cases. Those are divorce, child support, child custody issues. 1/4 of the probate cases, those are cases like guardianships and estate matters, and 1/4 of all the rest of the civil cases. The candidates for Division 2 are Sean Taylor, the Republican candidate, Morgan Brown, a Democrat candidate, Robert Higgins, a Democratic candidate. On August 28th, you will choose between Morgan Brown and Robert Higgins. Whoever wins that election will face Sean Taylor on November 6th. The Division 3 candidates are both Democrats. They are Eduardo Coronado and John Lamb. On August 28th, you will choose between them, and the winner will be uncontested in the November 6th election. The judge in Division 4 currently handles 95% of the juvenile delinquency cases, 95% of the juvenile dependency cases, 1/4 of the domestic relations cases. Again, those are divorce, child support, child custody issues. 1/4 of the probate cases. Those are things like guardianships and estate matters. And 1/4 of other civil cases. The unopposed candidate for this seat is Michaela Rickel. Each candidate will give a statement up to 2 minutes long to introduce themselves. We will go left to right. Our timekeeper is Gina Mua, seated to my left. After these introductions, I will ask questions of each candidate. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the same question. After all these questions are asked and answered, there will be a closing statement of up to 1 minute long. Our first introductory statement goes to Sean Taylor.
Thank you, Mary Claire. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sean Taylor. I am the Republican candidate for Division 2 for our good county. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I am married to a beautiful Latina woman. We've been married for 13 years, and we have 4 beautiful children. We have lived and resided in the Snowflake Taylor community for the last several years. I am from the White Mountain, raised in the White Mountains, graduated here, and so it's nice to be back and being able to contribute to our community. We have a practice in the Snowflake area, and the substantial portion of my practice is criminal law and family law. I will, I'm sure, have an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about my experience as the night goes on. I would like to just simply point out I'm the one candidate up here that's running Republican. I think that's critically important for those who are here and for those who are watching on the television. I think it's important that we have a conservative voice on the bench, someone who's willing to stand up, stand for their beliefs, maintain those beliefs throughout, and not change who they are to get a vote. I recognize and appreciate that there are far more Democrats in the county than Republican. But I stand here today, or sit here today, and before you, happy with who I am and confident that as a Republican and as a conservative, that I can bring a voice to the bench, that I can contribute significant things, and that I will do that in being who I am and not changing who I am. I'm happy to share the stage with these good individuals here. My opponents to the left, Bob Higgins and Mr. Brown, both very good individuals. I'm not here to say anything bad or negative about them. I simply remind you that I am the most qualified and the most prepared for Division II at this time, and would welcome your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Morgan Brown.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you to the Navajo County Bar Association for putting on this candidate forum. My name is Morgan Brown, and I'm running for Superior Court Division II as a Democrat. I have been married 22 years to my wife, Shauna. She's a school teacher in the Show Low School District. I have 3 children. We've lived in Show Low for about 16 years. And I've been an attorney up here in private practice with Brown & Brown Law Offices for the last 16 years. During that time, I've handled just about any case that you can imagine, from criminal cases to family law to dependencies to civil cases, probates, estate planning. I think I have a broad experience in all these matters, and that's what we need on the Superior Court bench, is someone who's had experience in a variety of matters and that can handle those types of matters. I've been the Holbrook City Attorney for 9 years, and I'm currently serving as the Show Low City Attorney. And I think that experience also plays into being a good Superior Court judge. I have a variety of things I like to do, like hunting and fishing and camping, but I love living in the White Mountains, and I love this area, and this is where I want to stay and raise my family. A couple of things I think bring me good experience as well is that I currently am the District Commissioner for the Boy Scouts of America, the White Mountain District. I've been volunteering and serving in that capacity for the last 4 years. I'm also the treasurer for the Show Low Youth Foundation. It's a local nonprofit charity that's raised over $600,000 in the last 10 years to help youth in the Show Low area. And in 2007, I was honored to receive an award to be one of the top 50 pro bono attorneys in the state of Arizona. It's given that award by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And I think that with that experience and my volunteerism, that I'm well served to be on the Superior Court. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Robert Higgins.
Thanks, Mary Claire, and thanks to the Navajo County Bar Association for putting this forum on today. My name is Bob Higgins. I'm currently a Division II Superior Court judge. I've been a resident of Lakeside and married to my wife Laura for almost 26 years now. We have 3 children, 2 of whom are here tonight with my wife and my father, who's here from California as well. It's good to have them here. My daughter Molly just graduated from Regis University and is coming back to the White Mountains to teach. My daughter Madeline just finished her first year of nursing school at Gonzaga up in Spokane, and my daughter Annie couldn't be here tonight. She's at Eastern Arizona College taking a summer school class. I mentioned my family because we've been very involved in the White Mountains for the whole time we've lived here, since 1994. When my wife Laura was involved with the hospital foundation, she started the Tour of the White Mountains up here. She also started the Women's Health Clinic and the Men's Prostate Screening Clinic, as well as the Women's Health Conference. Those are all things that are going on today still. Together we started St. Anthony's School, which I've worked on since 1997, and I still serve as the president of the board there. It's a great school that's growing all the time. We're up to about 120 students up to 7th grade this year. And also, I've been the president of the board for the White Mountain Tuition Support Foundation, which has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for scholarships. In addition to that, I'm now the Navajo County Superior Court Division II judge, and I was appointed by Governor Brewer in February after a long vetting process where there's a very extensive application as well as interviews, and I'm happy to say that Governor Brewer found that my broad experience, 18 years of practice, both as a prosecutor and in civil practice, as well as 9 years as a teacher and living abroad, give me the kind of experience to make good judgments as a Superior Court judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Eduardo Coronado.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. My name is Eduardo Coronado. I'm running for Navajo County Superior Court Judge, Division 3. I have experience in a variety of areas of law, civil, criminal, and civil, such things as contract, breach of contracts issues, criminal both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, probate law, family law, and other civil litigation. I've also been the attorney for the town of Springerville, both as general counsel and as prosecutor. I believe that that experience has been great, and I'm ready to be judge. There's really no area of law that I couldn't address as a judge. I believe that as a judge, one has to have the willingness to be where one is at. Meaning, if we're going to be a judge for Navajo County, we should want to be in Navajo County, and that's what I want to be, where I want to be. After law school, when I graduated from law school, I came to the White Mountains, and this is the only place where I've practiced, and this is where I want to be. This is where my family is. I'm married and have 2 children, and this is where I want them to grow up. I understand that my opponent, Mr. John Lamb, wants to leave Navajo County after 2 years, and I just believe that a person that wants to stay in Navajo County should be the person that serves Navajo County, because it will have the interest and the best interest of the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is John Lamb.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. I am the judge right now of the Superior Court Division 3, and so I thank you, the citizens of Show Low, for electing me to this position 8 years ago. I thank you for re-electing me to this position 4 years ago, and I ask for you to re-elect me again this time. Before I became a judge, I grew up in Palo Alto, California. I then went to Stanford University for my undergraduate degree. I then got a master's degree in public administration, which is how to run a public organization efficiently and costly, saving money by running that organization. It's similar to running, being a master's in business administration, but it's public administration. I then went to law school at Northwestern University, got my JD degree there. Then I came out to Phoenix, worked for a large corporate law firm, and did not like the atmosphere or attitude there, so I left that position and decided to start my own business. I did that for several years. I then sold that business and moved up because I felt I needed to contribute more to society, so I came up here to be a deputy public defender. And then after about a few months, I was also on the city council. I did that, and then I came to a position where I was being asked to run for judge, and I thought, like Ms. Hannah has mentioned, that this Superior Court is the highest trial court in the state, and if you're going to do that, you need to have experience before you jump into that highest level. You need to have some courtroom experience, and so I decided to become a lower court judge first. If I was going to make any mistakes, I wanted to make mistakes that didn't have large ramifications. So I decided to become a justice court judge and city court judge. I did that for 5 years, 10 years more, and I'll tell you more about that as we get into it.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Michaela Rickel.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Thank you to the Navajo County Bar Association and to Channel 4. My name is Michaela Rickel, and I am the current judge for Navajo County Superior Court Division 4. I was appointed to this newly created division in 2006 by Governor Napolitano and was elected by the people in 2008. I am running unopposed, and I appreciate this opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself. My family and I moved to the Navajo Reservation when I was 3 years old. From that time until I graduated from high school, I went to Tuba City High School, and we lived in Tuba City. At that time, I went to ASU for both undergraduate and law school. Upon finishing law school, I returned to my roots in northern Arizona. I met my sweetheart in graduate school, and we've been married for more than 26 years. We are blessed with 3 wonderful children, and I've been blessed to be a part of the Navajo County community for 26 years. Besides serving as a court commissioner and a Superior Court judge, I've also had the opportunity to volunteer throughout my years. I volunteered in the children's schools. I've spoken at other schools. I have taught Sunday school and been a youth leader for our church for more than 15 years. I have been a Girl Scout leader and an assistant Odyssey of the Mind coach. Overall, I'm just blessed by the people in this county, and I'm glad to be a part of this community for more than a quarter of a century. I appreciate your continuing support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've concluded the candidate opening statements. Previously, they drew a lot to figure out who would be the first to answer the first question, and that goes to Robert Higgins. Why is your opponent not the best choice? In other words, why should the voter choose you instead of someone else?
Thanks, Mary Claire. I don't want to say anything bad about my opponent, so I won't. I told Sean right from the start that I wouldn't say anything bad about him. I wouldn't hold his youth and inexperience against him. And of course, I'm just kidding about that. He's a good guy, and so is Morgan, so I wouldn't say anything bad about either one of them. I think that the reason I was appointed by Governor Brewer and the reason I am the best candidate for this job is that I do have a great breadth of experience. I was a prosecutor for almost 3 years in Navajo County. I prosecuted all kinds of cases from DUIs to domestic violence to juvenile crimes, several different types of cases, some felonies. In Superior Court, my courts were generally Pinetop, Lakeside, Show Low, and Snowflake, so I got to know the county very well. My breadth of experience in 18 years, and then after that, I practiced in private practice for 15 years, and I've seen just about every kind of civil case imaginable, and I've done a lot of family court, family law type of trials, and so I'm well prepared for Division II because that is basically what it is, criminal and family law court.
Thank you. Mr. Coronado, same question.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. I believe that as a judge, character does count, and what a judge does in the courtroom is very important, of course, but also what a judge does outside the court. And I can tell you that I will not be outside the court engaging in any behavior that is unbecoming of a judge. I understand that Mr. Lamb on November 2008 was stopped by the Holbrook police because someone in his vehicle stole some beer from a Holbrook neighborhood. Nobody in the vehicle was able to drive, so they called somebody else, and that person had a warrant for his arrest. Several people in that vehicle had a warrant for their arrest. I can just tell you that as a Superior Court judge, I will not engage in such behavior.
Thank you. John Lamb, same question.
I think I've been a judge now for 17 and a half years. My record speaks for itself. I ask that you speak to some of the lawyers that are out there that have been in my court. I have the experience. I have the respect of the community. I have the respect statewide. The Supreme Court of Arizona Chief Justice has appointed me to several committees. The Arizona State President has. The Arizona State Bar President has appointed me to several committees. One honor that I have is that the Supreme Court has asked me to write the criminal bench book, which is used by every judge in the state. And as most of these attorneys have alluded to, the criminal bench is the they have the most cases in our criminal bench. And the person that wrote that book before me was a judge from Phoenix, and he did that, and then I took over from him after he became a professor. And as I say, that book is used by every judge, and it is an honor to write that book each year, and the Supreme Court has chosen me out of every judge in the entire state to write that book. And I can go on, but my time's up, so I'll come back to.
Thank you. Michaela Rickel.
Okay. Well, the first question was, why am I a better choice than my opponent? Well, because there is no opponent, and we have way too much work for the seat to be unfilled. But I understand what the question was. I've been an attorney for 26 years, and I've been a judicial officer for more than 19 years, again, working as a child support court commissioner, judge pro tem, and then Superior Court judge. I was appointed by the Supreme Court as presiding judge 3.5 years ago, and with the help of a great group of hard workers, I've been responsible for administrative duties, including budget, personnel issues, and other administrative duties. I've been the presiding juvenile judge for more than 5 years. I've been a Superior Court judge for almost 6 years. I've been asked and served on various state and county committees, but my most important qualification is that I care. I care about the law, and I care about every person and every case that comes before me. And I'm committed to listen, to be fair and just, and to apply the law impartially. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Sean Taylor.
Thank you, Mary Claire. I've been looking forward to this minute after listening to Mr. Higgins' youth and experience comment. Let me just say, I will absolutely in any day stand on the stage with Mr. Higgins and respectfully compare our experience in the criminal law and family law field. You'll note that Mr. Higgins explained that he was a prosecutor for 3 years in primarily misdemeanor and justice court matters. That was in the 1990s. I think there is a far bigger difference between misdemeanors and felonies. I've been practicing and handling substantially larger felony matters for the last several years, far more experience in the criminal field and far more experience in the family law field than either of my opponents. I have spent 3 or 4 days a week over the last several years litigating in court. I have thousands of hours of courtroom experience and have not seen my opponents there as nearly as often as I've been there, so I think we have far better experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Morgan Brown.
Thank you. I briefly touched on my experience in the opening statement, and I think, again, that I have the vast experience and knowledge to be the Superior Court judge. That division is not just handling criminal or family law matters, it handles all kinds of matters, probate matters, civil matters. I have experience in those areas. Ultimately, though, I think my record speaks for itself on volunteerism and helping the community. I've been the secretary for the Navajo County Bar Association. I care about the legal profession and making sure that our attorneys here are represented well, that the community sees them as a service to the community. In addition, I think an important part of being a judge is to be independent, impartial. I've never worked for the Navajo County Attorney's Office. I never worked for the Public Defender's Office. I've handled those types of cases, but I don't have those ties to the County Attorney's Office or the Public Defender's Office. I think that's important for a judge, to not be tied to the County Attorney's Office or the Public Defender's Office, to handle each case independently and impartially. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second question is going to go to first Eduardo Coronado. Some problems, like mental illness or substance abuse, are so widespread that most of us have family or close friends who struggle with diseases like depression or addiction issues. Sometimes we become quite frustrated with the situation and the person with the problem. Many studies claim that these conditions are major contributors to crime. If you are sentencing an adult or adjudicating a juvenile who suffers from addiction or mental illness, what role will your own personal experiences with family or friends play when you sentence that person in front of you?
That's a very good question, and I can tell you that unfortunately I have had, as you stated, a close friend that suffered from that, and unfortunately, he took his own life. And so I have had that experience, and I understand that sometimes people don't see an out. They don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they do commit or engage in behavior that hurts themselves or hurts other people. And as a judge, you have to take that into consideration. And of course, every case is different based on what occurred and who was hurt and how that person was hurt. But I can tell you that I do have the empathy to understand and deal with that type of problem.
Thank you. John Lamb, same question.
I agree with the question completely because I've been on the bench, as I say, 17 and a half years, and I would say the percentage of evil people that come in front of our courtroom is very, very small. It's the percentage of people that are, I call it broken person that's on drugs, alcohol, has had a tough life. Those are the people that are in front of us. They're not evil people at heart most of the time. They are people that have gone the wrong direction, and we need to help them more than we need to punish them in most cases. And so there is room for mercy, but there's also room for justice. You know, when the alcohol or drugs get out of hand and they start hurting a victim, you've got to take that in consideration as well. And when they have done something tremendously awful, of course, you put them away for a long time. You've got to be able to balance that, knowing mercy and justice, and that's what experience comes into it. And I've been doing it for many, many years, and I will continue to do the balancing act there.
Thank you. Michaela Rickel, same question.
Thank you. Fortunately, I have the great honor of working mostly with juveniles, and we look at things a little bit differently with juveniles. One of our responsibilities is to prepare them to be adults. And where there's mental illness or substance abuse, we certainly have an opportunity and an obligation to get them the help that they need before it affects their adult criminal life and their families and their marriages and the whole aspect of their life. However, I also find that excusing it or hiding it doesn't help the situation. So it is important that people be held accountable, but again, as Judge Lamb said, shown mercy, and more importantly, made sure that they get the help they need so they can be a productive member of society.
Thank you. Sean Taylor?
I guess I would join in many of the comments that Judge Lamb and Judge Rickel just mentioned. I would add this, that you, in doing as many criminal cases I've handled over the last several years, being both a prosecutor and a defense attorney, I've come to recognize that we are not doing a service to our community members and to the defendants and to their family members if we are not assisting to fix the underlying problems that are at the root and the cause of these crimes. As many cases that I handle involve substance abuse, drug use, alcohol abuse. That hurts the defendants, it hurts the victims of domestic violence and other things. We have to get to the root. We have to fix the underlying substance abuse problems. I'm a proponent of the drug court program for the last several years. I've done everything I can to help fix the problems that my clients are having with drugs so they can become more productive members of society, so they do not relapse back into further criminal activity. I'm a fan of fixing it, and if they're unable to learn after going through these opportunities, that's when we need to, again, extend an arm of bring justice to that and make sure that they're held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan Brown?
Thank you. I think anybody that's practiced and dealt with in the legal system knows that this is a huge problem in the system, and a lot of it is because of the repeat offenders that come back time and time again. I agree with the comments that are made that justice and mercy play a role. I think that it's important, though, to, as Sean also mentioned, to seek the underlying treatment and seek treatment for these individuals to stop the problem and to seek a way to help them through the problem. But ultimately, it's holding them accountable It's usually a series of bad choices to lead to where they're at, and sometimes along the way, people have not held them accountable for their actions and what they've done. I think that's an important part of a Superior Court judge, is to hold people accountable for their actions and realize that it hurts others when they do those types of things that they've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Higgins.
Thank you. On the mental health side of things, as a judge, I've now seen quite a few cases where people are mentally ill and come before me, and there is a process for that. It's called Rule 11 process evaluation. We try to protect society, but also sometimes those people, if they've done serious injury to others, have to be taken off the streets. I have the pleasure right now of presiding over drug court, which is a rehabilitative type of justice rather than punitive, where we take people who would normally be incarcerated for 2.5 or 3 years for drug offenses, victimless crimes, and now we try to rehabilitate them through a 24-month process with a drug court team made up of probation officers and counselors and a prosecutor and a defense lawyer. And we sentence them to 180 days of jail up front, which is suspended. And so when they do well on the program, they progress with rewards, and when they don't do well, they go to jail for bits and pieces of time. And that seems to work well to foster good habits and hopefully ensure that they're successful, productive adults when they emerge from the program.
Thank you. Our next question will go first to John Lamb. There's been talk that the state may require counties, including Navajo County, to pay 25% of the cost of each person sent to prison by Navajo County judges. Currently, the state pays 100% of the cost of prison. So if this happens, sending someone to prison will have a huge financial impact on Navajo County. We all know that government and citizens are already struggling financially. If this happens, and we hope it doesn't, how will this shift impact how you sentence people?
It will impact me negligibly. I would say you always have to be cognizant of taxpayer money. And when I first became a judge, and that's why it's important to know the difference between rules of law and culture. The culture in our county was saying, when I said, well, let's get this guy to Department of Corrections right away, instead of having him here 30 days in our jail while we do a pre-sentence report, let's get him right down to the state so the county doesn't pay that money. Everybody said, well, you can't send a guy to Department of Corrections without getting a pre-sentence report, and that takes 30 days to write. I said, that's not in the rules. Let's get them down there right now. And so it changed the culture. You do things like that to save money that are efficient, but you don't decide whether a person should go to prison or not based on economic reasons. You may end up having a case that's right on the borderline. You know, you're not sure if this guy can make it in probation, or you should send him to prison. Well, then maybe it will come into play. But that would be the only time that you would do that. If it's a guy deserves to go to prison, you send him to prison.
Thank you. Michaela Rickel, same question.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, I do believe that the people that our judges send to prison are people who need to be in prison, and they need to be there for the protection of the people of the state. And that is a primary obligation. And so the simple fact is we have to do what is necessary to protect the people of the state. As far as the budget issue, and again, I work with the budget on a quarterly and annual basis, and I know that it is tight. But the simple fact is we are elected to serve the people and to protect the people and the property in this county, and that's what we'll do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Taylor, same question.
Mary Claire, I'm a big follower of the U.S. Constitution and the separation of powers between the lawmakers and those that interpret and enforce the law. We have individuals that are in place to set these budgets and that set the rules that we are to abide by. And I think on the bench that it would not be our place to certainly on a personal level, we're concerned about the budget and the financial constraints that will place on Navajo County citizens. But it will not impact my decision in terms of whether or not a person should go to prison. If they need to be in prison, that's where they'll be, and that's going to be the consequence. On the flip side, I think part of your question was, what do we do financially, and how do we deal with that? Well, frankly, you make sure that the people who are causing these financial harms ultimately pay for them. Now, it may be down the road, but if we start instituting higher financial penalties and make sure that we go after them and put a policy in place where we're collecting these monies, we can start recouping from the very people that are causing us the financial woes. We can recoup from them in the end, and it'll start bringing a higher amount of money to the county, to the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan Brown, same question.
Thank you. I agree that the judge's role is ultimately to protect the victims, the innocent people, children, and the elderly that may be the victims of these crimes. So if someone deserves to be in prison, certainly a judge's role is to hold them accountable and put them there. I do, however, have an idea that there may be some of the crimes or lower-level crimes where a solution to this problem is using some type of a house arrest. I think that that's been successful in other areas where people can be on a house arrest, maybe even maintain their job, to allow them to pay some of the costs that we've talked about, because that's the problem, is you fine them, but you never get it out of them because they lost their job. And if we can allow these people to keep their job, be on a house arrest, and hold them accountable, that may be a way to save some of the money in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Higgins.
Thanks. I also think that you have to sentence people according to the law and the facts in front of you. You have to take everything into consideration. Of course, budget is one thing, and so in Navajo County, we've started an innovative program here called Early Resolution Court that I'm honored to preside over. And Early Resolution Court, normally when a defendant comes to court, they'll have an initial appearance, arraignment, and 6 or 7 or 8 case management conferences. The average time from arraignment to the close of a case is about 100 days. In Early Resolution Court, we're looking to make it more like 2 weeks to 30 days. And so from the beginning of the case to the end of the case will be much quicker, and it'll unclog the calendars where all of our divisions can focus on the harder cases, the cases that take more thought and consideration, both civil and criminal. So I think that's one way we can save the county money. I'm hoping that the scenario you painted is not going to happen, but still, I think a judge has to look at the facts before him and decide based on the law and the facts.
Thank you. Eduardo Coronado.
Well, I agree with all the candidates. The main role of the judge is to decide cases based on the law and on the facts that are in front of him or her. Whether there's going to be a monetary consequence should be really the last consideration that a judge considers, because the issue in front of the judge is whether this person committed the crime. If the person committed the crime, then what is the penalty? Certainly, I don't think any of the candidates, and I think that's what they said, is they wouldn't let a criminal free because of a potential monetary consequence. So I agree with most of what everybody said.
Right. Thank you. Our next first responder will be Michaela Rickel. Divorce and child custody cases can be bitter contests where each side claims that the other side has done outrageous and terrible things. In some cases, no admissible evidence is ever brought before you to court. You, the judge, are left with just unsubstantiated claims on both sides. Please comment on what role, if any, those claims will play on your final decision in the case.
Thank you. Well, first of all, claims, if they're testified to, are evidence. So there is generally some evidence presented. And it is up to a judge to look at all the evidence, including people's demeanor, and what other outside factors you've seen, and what else is happening with the children, between the parties, to make your decision. That's where, again, being willing to listen, being committed to the best interests of the children, and following the law comes into play, and also the experience of having seen people in front of the court and testifying in front of the court for more than 19 years. Simple fact is, sometimes people don't agree, but sometimes they simply see things from two different ways, and so it's important for us to be fair and impartial and to see the truth and to factor the truth from what the information is that's presented.
Thank you. Sean Taylor, same question.
Mary Claire, as I said earlier, I've been doing divorce, child custody, child support matters for the last several years. There's not a week that goes by I'm just not in court litigating these type of cases. I joke with my wife that I come home on a day and I say I'll sit there and I've done no real physical labor, but I'll be just exhausted. And I tell her I've just gone through 5 divorces today. It's exhausting. And when you have a scenario, and it happens quite often where due to legal rules and attorney maneuvers, you don't have the evidence that you wanted to get in front of the judge. As a judge, you have to do what you can to look into what has been presented and not create your own evidence. You have to base your rulings on what's been presented. Granted, you have the opportunity as a judge to meet ex parte with children. You're always looking out for what's in the best interest of the children, first and foremost. That's paramount. Property issues are always seem to be secondary, but you have to base your rulings on the facts and the law that are before you and do the best you can to, and use your experience, which I do have, to make the best and most equitable ruling. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan Brown, same question.
Thank you. You know, family law cases can be, as we all know, very contentious, and one of the ways that I think a judge can play a very vital role in those cases is to seek some early settlement conferences or mediations with the parties and get them to focus on the children and the issues at hand instead of themselves. Most of the time in these type of cases, the parties are focused on themselves. What am I going to get out of it? What's in it for me? And if a judge can be that person who can step in and mediate it and get them to focus on what's important, and as Sean said, it's the children that are important in these types of cases, then they can be resolved early on, and a lot of these problems that occur in the family law cases won't have to happen. So I think that's an important role for a judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Higgins, same question.
Thank you. Since 1997, when I first started in private practice, I have done unfortunately, hundreds of divorces and child custody cases. I think they are the most difficult types of cases. As Sean said, the best interest of the child is the standard in the child custody cases, and I try to, as a judge, put that foremost. A lot of times you don't get a lot of great evidence, but you do get testimony, and it may seem the most basic of things, but a good judge has to have good judgment. So you have to judge a person's character, whether they're telling the truth or not. You have to look at their demeanor. You have to know a lot about human nature, and I think the fact that I've practiced for so long and I had a lot of experience outside the law and I taught for so many years gives me a good edge there, because I do have, I think, good judgment of character, and that's crucial in these family law cases. Of course, the law is the law, and you have to, again, come out based on the facts and the law that are presented to you. So I also agree with Morgan that alternate dispute resolution up front and judicial settlement conferences are valuable, and I've tried those and have been successful so far with them.
Thank you. Eduardo Coronado, same question.
Fortunately, about 6 years ago, the Supreme Court of Arizona adopted new rules for family law procedure, and the question that you asked goes specifically to Rule 2 of the Arizona Rules of Family Law Procedure, and that is the rules of evidence, as most attorneys know it, and especially in criminal law, are not necessarily applied in family law unless one of the parties specifically says that they want those rules applied. So if those rules are not applied, meaning the rules of evidence, then there's greater latitude as to what comes in and what the judge can consider. And of course, that is done because so many divorces are handled pro per, meaning by the parties, not by attorneys, and that really helps. I believe that the judges engaging in resolution management conferences where the mediator is another attorney that practices in law would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. John Lamb, same question.
I remember a judge told me when he was retiring, he was the judge in Flagstaff, Jeff Coker. He said, try to avoid divorces if you can, because I could have kept going if I didn't have to handle those divorces. It really wears on you. And we were lucky in our county that we had a guy named Tom Wing that was a judge that liked divorces. So I got to stay away from him, and he loved them. But then he left the bench and retired, and his replacement didn't want to do divorces. I don't blame him. So we're now doing them. But one of the things that I did when I owned my company is selling ideas, and that is what I do in the divorces. My court reporter has told me now, I've been doing it for 6 months, that I am lucky. She says that after every one that is going to be a real contested divorce and real contentious, she said, boy, you're lucky. They settled everything. But that's, I think she'll figure out after a few years that it's not completely luck. It's getting them to agree, getting them to look at what is best for them, getting them to look at what's best for the kids, getting them to realize that they have to continue on in a relationship, even though this relationship's ending, that they're still going to be talking, they're still going to have to work things out, and we can start right here and now in this courtroom working things out in a civil way. And so I think that is the best way to handle the divorces.
Thank you. Our next question will first go to Sean Taylor. The very essence of being a judge is to be fair and neutral. A judge needs to be able to make decisions free of outside considerations and outside pressure. The judge is expected to just consider the law and the facts in front of him or her and to make the best decision possible. However, in our states, we elect judges. This injects judges and judicial candidates into politics, and some say that politics heavily involves special interests. Please comment.
Mary Claire, I hope you can tell by the fact that I have a sign sitting in front of me that says Republican. That will tell you what I will do in the courtroom. I have not decided to change who I am, to get elected, to get a vote. I recognize that Mr. Higgins was appointed by the governor, and he mentioned that. After being appointed, he changed parties to the Democrat Party. I like him as a person. I think that was a poor decision. And I think that's a slippery slope that I certainly don't want to be on. I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to cower to politics. I don't care who walks in the courtroom. You can be a state senator. You can be a bishop. You can be any number of other powerful people in the community, and it's not going to unreasonably influence me to make the wrong decision. And I do not think that politics should enter the bench. I'm sorry that we have to do this election process, but we do. That's what we're up against. But I have maintained who I am throughout, win or lose, and I think that says measures about who I am and about my character and about what I will do once I'm on the bench. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Morgan Brown.
Thank you. I think I mentioned this briefly before, that I feel that a critical role for a judge is to be independent of outside influences, and that includes even working for various offices in the county. I think a judge should know that when someone comes before that judge, that they're impartial, they're independent and fair, that they haven't worked in the county attorney's office, they're not partial to that office, they haven't worked in the public defender's office and not partial to that side, that they're going to get a fair shake in front of a judge. I think I've been true to who I am. I've been a Democrat all my life. I haven't changed that. And that's what I've been all my life. And I think that it's unfortunate that we do have to do these elections in the rural counties. I think that it does sometimes get politics entered into something that it shouldn't be, but that's what it is. And I think that out of my two opponents, I'm then the one that's the most independent. And that's why I stand on that record. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Robert Higgins.
Thanks, Mary Claire. I was appointed by Governor Brewer as an independent, and the reality in this county is you have to choose a party, really, if you want to get elected, and I chose a party, and I'll stick with that. I haven't changed at all who I am. I'm a conservative, very conservative person, anybody who knows me. So I haven't changed any principles at all. It's just a D or an R behind the name. After the primary, that goes away, by the way. This is a as Sean said, kind of ironically, this should be a non-political race, and their politics really don't play into your day-to-day affairs in court. You decide cases based on the law and the facts, the people in front of you. You don't decide them on whether you're Republican or Democrat. So I don't think that has much to do with anything as far as who should be the judge. As far as independence goes, I'm proud to say that I'm good friends with many of the prosecutors, and I'm also good friends with many of the defense bar. I don't have any bias. I try to look at every case fresh and fairly. I think that I can hear with integrity any case that comes before me, and I don't think politics has a whole lot to do with it.
Thank you. Same question, Eduardo Coronado.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. Well, politics unfortunately does play a factor. We're politicians. Yeah, we want to be judges, but we're running. I can tell you that I'm a Democrat, and that's all I've been ever in my life. I can tell you how I became a Democrat. My father was a captain for Cesar Chavez. If anybody knows anything about Cesar Chavez, he was nothing but a progressive man, civil rights leader, and we followed Cesar Chavez, who I grew up, portraits of John F. Kennedy in my living room, and I'm not changing that. If this county leans Democrat, then I guess I'm lucky. But if it wasn't leaning Democrat, I would still be a Democrat. And let me tell you, I've gone to places where the majority of people are Republican, and I still maintain that I'm a progressive Democrat. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, John Lamb.
It is sad to me that politics is in judicial races, and I don't think we should be politicians. I do believe that a judge, even above any other, other candidates may want to run in other elections and play dirty and do dirty politics. It's no place for that in judicial elections. I've had many opponents. I've been elected, as I said, I've been in 8, I think, races. People have written to me and said, this opponent is this, or this, tell them about this on your opponent. I don't play that kind of game. I don't play dirty politics. Even if it's true, I'm not attacking the person. I'm here to stand for my record, and that's how I get elected. I remember when I was Justice of the Peace, and I came in, and there was a guy that came into my court he didn't have a seatbelt on it, but he was a big cheese in the community, and he told me that. He's do you know who I am? And I wouldn't let him get off of that. I've had state senators, as Mr. Taylor was mentioning, call me and ask me, let me off my little traffic ticket. I don't believe in cutting corners on small cases. I don't believe in cutting corners on big cases. If there's a packed courtroom and I feel that the justice should be against that packed courtroom, that's the way I rule. You let the political chips fall where they are, and I've done that all my life. I've ruled the way I've thought is fair and just, and if people don't like it, well, then they vote me out. That's why we have elections.
Excuse me. Time.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Michaela Rickel, same question.
Well, the simple fact is, at the end of the day, you have to look yourself in the mirror, and you have to know that you've been fair and impartial, and that you've done what's right to the best of your ability. And that's what I'm committed to, and I think that's what all the candidates and all the judges are committed to. One of the things that I've personally done when I first was appointed is I made sure that I set aside money to campaign so that I never had to accept contributions from individuals, so that can never be seen as any type of political pressure. But the simple fact is, again, it's who you are, and it's who I think everybody here is. You do what's right because it's right and because that's what you're committed to.
Thank you. Our next question will first be answered by Morgan Brown. Some have described our sentencing laws in Arizona as a mandatory sentencing scheme. From a judge's perspective, would you like to see more discretion than currently is available on some cases? Please comment.
Well, I think as Sean mentioned, we have a constitution, you have a separation of powers, and you have a legislature that makes the laws, and as a judge, your role is to interpret those and to follow the laws that they make. So to some degree, we have to rely on our elected representatives, the legislature, to do that for us. But I think a lot of times what we miss is the human element. of what's going on in the courtroom, and I think that's where a judge's role is important there, to see the family life, to see what's going on in this person's life, whether it's alcohol and drug abuse, where it's mental illness, where you can, as a judge, take your wisdom, what you've learned over the years, and apply that to that situation. And so to some degree, yeah, I think that we'd like to see a little more discretion in the sentencing where a judge can take that role, and that's what judges are for, to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Robert Higgins, same question.
Thanks, Mary Claire. I inherited in March when I took the bench 849 cases, which is a big caseload, and most of them, I'd say 90%, were criminal. And one of the hardest things in criminal law is sentencing someone. So it's nice to have as much discretion as possible. However, during sentencing, you get a pre-sentence report. There is a presumptive sentence, say in a drug case, for example, 2.5 years or 3 years for an aggravated sentence, or a year and a half for mitigated sentence. And then there are aggravators and mitigators beyond that, where you can go higher, longer term or a shorter term. And so the parameters are, I don't think they're all that bad, because it gives you a range of sentencing possibilities. And you can always do some other things as well, be creative about sentencing at times, and sentence someone to Salvation Army rehabilitation, for example, if they have an alcohol problem. So I think that while discretion is great, the presumptive and mitigating and aggravating factors in our scheme of sentencing is not a bad thing altogether.
Thank you. Same question, Eduardo Coronado.
You know, there is a separation of powers. We are running for the judicial branch of our government, and what we want to do as judges is to look at the law versus the facts and decide. I don't want to be legislating. Not that a Superior Court judge can legislate, but I don't want to be legislating. Otherwise, if I wanted to legislate, then I would be running for a representative or a state senator. But I'm running for judge, and I believe that that's what you do. You look at the facts, you compare them to the law, and then you make a decision. Absolutely, you're a human, and that's why you should be doing the job, because you want to look at all the relevant facts, have empathy, and look at the sentencing scheme, as Judge Higgins stated, presumptive, aggravated, mitigating circumstances.
Thank you. John Lamb, same question.
I'm also fine with the amount of discretion that I have, because you can make your own discretion too. You know, we have the authority now. When I first started on the bench, we could not do settlement conferences. Now we can do settlement conferences. So if the prosecutor is saying that I'm going to charge it as this kind of a crime, but it seems more likely that it should be a lower crime, then we can talk about that at the settlement conference and try to work it so I can get a little more discretion. And I'll defer to the prosecutor or the defense attorney and listen to the facts and decide it. I wanted to say, when it comes to mandatory sentences, that's one of my pet peeves, because it gets in the newspaper that the judge gave him 84 years, and then the other judge on another case gave the person 3 years or something. But it had to do with the defendant going to trial and losing, and then it is no discretion with the judge. But I do agree with the other people about the separation of power. That's for the legislature to sit down, talk about what this community or what our state believes should be harsher penalties. They make those decisions, and then we follow those.
Thank you. Michaela Rickles, same question.
And similar to what everyone else has stated, I would point out that the sentencing structure is a legislative function, and again, as judges, it is our duty to make sure that laws are constitutional and then applied properly. And the sentencing structure does allow for a great deal of discretion in criminal cases as well as other cases. And I believe that within that discretion, justice can be met. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Taylor, same question.
Mary Claire, as I mentioned, I've been both a defense attorney and a prosecutor. I'm a former deputy county attorney for Navajo County. I'm the current town prosecutor for the town of Springerville. On the prosecution end, I can tell you that it's favorable to have the sentencing the way it is now. It helps as a prosecutor to, so the defendants stop the gamesmanship, stop the games. They know that if they make these decisions and risk, instead of just taking a reasonable plea, that they're going to get and have this higher penalty coming. And I think that accelerates our court system. I think that benefits everybody. Of course, as a defense attorney, I like the judge to have a lot more discretion so that we're not stuck to where a prosecutor is maybe saying stipulated sentence and it's in the hands of the state, where maybe the judge can have a little more discretion. So I think I like the sentencing the way it is. I'm probably less favorable to the stipulated pleas that take any discretion away from the judges. I think judges need to be able to read a pre-sentence report, look at a defendant's history, look at all the facts and circumstances of that person's family life and the victims as well, and then make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. These were tough questions to answer in such a short period of time, so I thank you, each and every one of you, for attempting that. We're now going to the closing statements, and we're going to keep the same order that we started with. So you have 1 minute, and the first, or up to 1 minute, the first goes to Robert Higgins.
Thanks, Mary Claire. I believe that I'm the best candidate for Division II. First of all, because I've had a year of training almost now in the job, and I enjoy the job. I feel like I'm good at it, and hope that the voters will come out with the same verdict. The other reason I'm the best candidate for this position is because I've had a lot of experience. I've practiced law in Navajo County for 18 years. I've been very involved in this community. I care about the litigants who come in front of me and about each case. I've also had life experience. I've raised 3 daughters here in Navajo County who I think have turned out pretty well. And I have had a family. I've had a lot of experience outside the law. And I've also taught for 9 years. I've lived overseas for 2 years. So my breadth of experience both in and out of the law qualifies me to be the best candidate for this position. And I'd ask for your vote both on August 28th and November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Eduardo Coronado.
Thank you, Ms. Hannah. I've had the great opportunity of practicing in very different areas of law: civil, criminal, family law, probate law, and I believe that that's very, very instrumental in helping a person who's a judge make decisions. A person who is going to be a judge for Navajo County should be a person that wants to stay in Navajo County and not leave in 2 years. And also, as I stated earlier, person that has character both inside the courtroom and outside, out and about in the community. As I've told you before, I promise that if you vote for me and get me elected into office, I will not engage in any unbecoming behavior, cavorting with people that have arrest warrants and are going into convenience stores and stealing beer. Thank you.
Thank you. John Lamb.
Thank you. I'll just end on a story from my last contested race. In the midst of the campaign, a woman came to me that's a friend of mine, and she said to me, "Hey, Judge, Carlos is out there campaigning for you." And she was worried about that because Carlos was a convicted felon. And she said, "He's out campaigning for you." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to stop him because, for one, he's a big guy. And 2, he's a felon. And so and besides that, he's doing that unsolicited. I never asked him to go out and campaign for me." Why I bring this up is that later in the campaign, the same officers that busted Carlos in a drug bust, I found out were also campaigning for me. And again, it was unsolicited. And I said to myself back then, and I say to you tonight, if the cops and the criminals are both out there campaigning for you without you asking for them, you've got to be doing something right. And that's what I'm asking you to allow me to continue to do. And so I'm asking for your vote August 28th.
Thank you. Michaela Rickel.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say that I am humbled and honored by the trust that the people of Navajo County have placed in me, and I want to thank them for that and their continuing support. But I have to admit, I don't do it alone. I am extremely fortunate in that I have wonderful people working with me. We have attorneys in this county that I would put against any attorney in the state. We have wonderful court staff that works diligently. The clerk's office works very, very hard to make sure that we have the information that we need when we go to the bench. We have CASA workers who help with the children that I have the privilege to work with. We have mediators who try to help resolve cases, and we have the county officials who've always been there to back us up and to provide the funding that we need to do the job that we do. So again, thank you so much for allowing me to do this for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Taylor.
Mary Claire, thank you again. I wanted to end with this. George Washington is quoted as saying, "The Constitution is the guide that I will never abandon." And I feel like probably more than any statement, that's probably true to what I would do as a judge. I'm a firm believer in following the Constitution and following the laws of our state and our country. My father is a law enforcement officer. My father-in-law is a deputy sheriff. My brother is a police officer. I have a large amount of respect for what happens in our communities. I certainly respect our law enforcement agencies. I will not shame you. This is a very big role, and I bring to the table years of experience in the criminal field and years of experience in the family law field as a former prosecutor, as a current prosecutor, and handling far more criminal cases and family law cases than my opponents. I would hope that you would consider those things and consider that I am running as a Republican and a conservative voice in our county, and hope that you vote for me in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan Brown.
Thank you. No, I think that we talked about my experience and record here tonight. I think that the experience that I bring will serve the citizens of Navajo County well. As a Navajo County Superior Court judge, I think that there's several things that I can do to make the system better. And one is to speed cases along. I think I have the experience in civil cases and in other cases to make the cases speed along and go faster. It takes way too long on these cases to get them through the system today. And part of that is the judge's role is to step in and make sure that the case is moving along. And that can save taxpayer money, can save litigants money, and it makes the system fairer and more just if justice is given out in a speedy manner. I think that my experience in life is also serves me well to be a Superior Court judge. You know, my dad told me shortly before he died, he says everybody should run for some office during their lifetime, just to have that experience. And I decided a few months ago that now's the time for me to run, to bring my experience to the citizens of Navajo County and to offer to them what I have and see if they'll vote for me. So I ask for your vote on August 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Mary Claire Hanna on behalf of the Navajo County Bar Association, thanking the City of Show Low for these fine facilities. Thank you to City 4 for broadcasting this candidate forum. Thank you especially to all the candidates who participated this evening. Thank you to the audience members, and thank you to you, the viewers, for watching this. Please be sure to vote, be heard in the upcoming election on both August 28th and November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you.